I loved to watch her cook. She made everything from scratch because she was from back in the day when they didn't have a lot of convenience type foods like we have in the stores now. Wasn't a bunch of box mixes and stuff. You actually had to start everything from scratch. She baked pies and cakes and biscuits and everything from scratch. And when I was real little, probably, I don't know, maybe 4, maybe 5, I used to watch her make cakes, and she could make angel food cakes like nothing I ever seen. I've never been able to make an angel food cake worth a hoot, but I used to watch her whip up them eggs and make them angel food cakes, and boy, they were good. As I got a little older, she'd teach me how to make, little things. I mean, nothing really big, but it always meant a lot to me. I'd go and spend Friday and Saturday nights with her. So on Saturday and Sunday morning, she'd make breakfast, and she'd always whip up a batch of biscuits. And I finally got old enough that I could just go to the cupboard and get everything out that she needed and have it all sitting there so that she could whip up them biscuits and roll them out. She always cut them with a glass. She had a special glass up in the cupboard that she liked to use, and she'd flour up the rim of that glass and cut them biscuits out with it. Little memories like that mean a lot to kids. But the favorite thing that she ever made that I just loved and was crazy over it was molasses cookies. She made up a batch of molasses cookies on a Friday, and I come down to her house there on Friday night, spend the night. She said, well, I've got us kind of a treat. And I said, what you got? And she said, I made up some molasses cookies. Well, that didn't really sound too terrible appetizing to me. And I said, really? And she says, yeah. And so she got them. And boy, I tell you what, they was the best cookies I think I'd ever tasted in my life. I loved them. She'd make them cookies, and then she'd dust them with some powdered sugar. Oh, man. And I remember next week going off to school and telling the kids that my granny'd made molasses cookies, and they all turned up their noses. And I told them, you don't know what you're missing. Them molasses cookies is something else. Well, she finally taught me how to make them, and she never used measuring cups or measuring spoons or anything. She knew exactly how much would, be a teaspoon or a tablespoon or, cup or, whatever it was that she was measuring out just by putting it in her hands. And one time I called her out on it, and I said, now, how do you know for sure that that's the right amount? And she says, well, go over there in the back of that drawer. And it was always, like in the back of the drawer because it wasn't anything she used often. It was measuring spoons, measuring cups or whatever. And she says, and give that here. So I did, and she measured it out in her hand, and she poured it in the measuring cup, and sure enough, it was exactly the right amount. And then she did the same thing, with a teaspoon or something or whatever it was she's measuring. She says, here, let me show you. And she got the spoon, and she showed me, and she said, just exactly right. I said, well, how do you know that? I mean, how is it that you know without actually putting it in the measure first? And she says, it's from experience. So she taught me how to cook that way. And it's hard for me to give anybody a recipe on something because of the way she taught me how to do it. It's about this much and a dab of this and a pinch of that and yay so much of this or that or the other thing to make something up. But I'll tell you what, if you ever want to make molasses cookies, the number one thing you got to remember, even if you get a cookbook out to get the recipe, you have to use Burr Rabbit molasses. You can't use some other brand. It has to be Burr Rabbit because no other brand tastes as good as Burr Rabbit molasses cookies. And she has been long gone. Lord have mercy, about 40 years the woman passed away. And I still remember exactly how to make them molasses cookies. And as a matter of fact, I whipped up a batch tonight. So since I get off of here, my cookies ought to be cool enough for me to munch on. See you later. Bye.